Welcome to the Resilient Retail Game Plan, a podcast for anyone wanting to start, grow or scale a profitable creative product business with me, Catherine Erdley. The Resilient Retail Game Plan is a podcast dedicated to one thing, breaking down the concepts and tools that I've gathered from 20 years in the retail industry and showing you how you can use them in your business. This is the real nuts and bolts of running a successful product business, broken down in an easy, accessible way. This is not a podcast about learning how to make your business look good. It's the tools and techniques that will make you and your business feel good. Confidently plan, launch and manage your products, and feel in control of your sales numbers and cash flow to help you build a resilient retail business. Welcome to the Resilient Retail Game Plan. I'm your host, Catherine Erdley, as well as the founder of the Resilient Retail Club, which is my membership group for product businesses. You can find out more about the membership group and my one-to-one services by visiting resilientretailclub.com. Today's episode is a solo episode, and I wanted to talk to you specifically about selling right now, because the summer is typically a very quiet time, or can be a quieter time for a lot of retail businesses, and it can be quite nerve-wracking because it feels like everyone else's attention is elsewhere. Unless you're a summer brand, maybe you sell summer-related products or festivals, that kind of thing, then you may be feeling that this is a really quiet time of the year and it's quite unnerving. What I wanted to run through in this episode is just some top tips to think about during the summer. I know that when this episode goes out, we'll be in pretty much about middle of August. So the summer is most of the way through. But I think the tips that I want to share with you, they're relevant for selling in the summer, but they're also relevant for selling throughout the year and also in 2022 in particular. So what I'm going to run through is 6 key points about selling right now. The first thing that I want to do, the first point I'd like to make is don't make assumptions. So what does that mean? Well, one of the hardest things about running a small business is that when sales are quiet, when things are quiet, a lot of people, I don't want to say everybody, but a lot of people will have this feeling that it's really to do with them, that something has happened, that it's really to do with their business, that their products are no longer wanted or needed by their customers. And it can be a really tough place to be mentally. And it's one of the things that gets you stuck in what I like to call the cycle of doom, where you don't take as much action, so sales drop, so you lose your confidence. You don't take as much action, so the sales drop, you lose confidence, and you just go round and round and round. And I think the key thing with the summer is to really understand the seasonality, because seasonality will really help you appreciate when it is a problem with your products or the way that you're selling or that the customer's moved on, and when it's just simply the time of year. And I've worked in the retail industry now for 22 years. And so I have spent a lot of my time looking at seasonality, looking at seasonal patterns for businesses that I've worked in. And every single business that I've worked in has had times when you feel like you're running behind the demand. You're trying to keep up. You're trying to pump the stock out fast enough to stores in order to keep up with the sales. And we've had seasons with very similar products, very similar stores, where it's just felt a lot slower, like it's trying to get blood out of a stone, where you're trying really hard to get the sales. And one of the joys of looking at that data on a year-by-year basis, and sometimes we would run plans with 5 years, 10 years of history, so that you could see those patterns. And I think it's one of the things that a lot of small businesses really struggle with, because they tend to look at their sales almost as a linear pattern. So if your sales go up from January into February, you're thinking, yes, I'm growing. February into March, that's great. March into April, and then so on and so forth. And then you hit the summer months and it dips down. And for a lot of people, they suddenly panic and they think, oh my goodness, what's going to happen? But in fact, and I have this in my own business too, there's definitely a seasonality to my business. But when you look at the layers of it, when you look back at the year, then maybe last year your sales had a very similar shape. Really what this is about is understanding and not making assumptions. Not making assumptions that when sales dip down that it's to do with your customer or your customer deciding they don't like you anymore. It's not to do with the fact that nobody's buying anything anymore. It's not to do with the fact that your products are dreadful and everyone hates them. It's really to do with the fact that it's the summer, your business is seasonal, And that's the reality of it. So when you do your sales plans each year, you can account for that. In fact, one of the most powerful things that I've done with people is when I've mapped out their year with them, is that they've been able to look at the seasonality and then make decisions about what they want the summer to be, which is my point number 2. So we're just going to look at this and look at the seasonality of the business. Then you can decide what you want the summer to be. So, for example, if you know that your summer is always your hardest time for selling, it's always just really tricky because people aren't focused, then you can decide that's when you're going to take your break. There are also other situations that you might be in. So let's say we have, for example, in our membership group, we have Victoria at the Ready Money Beach Shop. And of course, she's a summer beach shop, so she is very, very busy in the summer. But equally so, if you have a business that is very busy in the summer, you might have a time that is really quiet. So it could be that October is the quietest month for you, or February. So just as much as what we're talking about here about the summer is applicable to whenever there's a real lull time in your business. And the first part of doing that is actually looking at your seasonality, looking at your sales month on month and understanding how your business moves, and then identifying those quiet times. So if the summer is the quiet time for you, then you can just make a decision. Is this the month that you take off or take some of your time off, close the shop for a couple of weeks? Or if you have staff that can help you keep it going when you're not there, do you keep it going, but you know that this is not going to be your big sales month? Lots of people who have non-summer focused businesses, they will not launch products in August. It's one of the 2 months of the year that they don't launch products. The other month usually being December, because they're in such a flurry of activity in the run up to Christmas. So maybe you don't launch new products in the month of August because everyone's attention is elsewhere. Whatever is the right decision for your business, it feels really good to make that decision proactively and to look at your year and to say, I can see that August sales are generally half of a normal month. What if I assume they're going to be, say, quarter of a normal month, and I just give myself a bit of extra time off? And then I know that my September to December sales have to pick up the difference. It's a very powerful position. It's a very proactive decision, and it helps you make the decision that is right for you and for your business. You can see if you contrast the two approaches, the one which is that you're not tracking the seasonality and you just see your sales drop and then you have a panic, and the other being that you're aware of the fact that your sales are quieter in August because you've been looking at your data, and therefore you make a decision to step back from the business and to have a quieter month. It's really up to you what you want the month of August to be like. And as I said, if you're listening to this not in the summer, or you're somebody who doesn't have a super summer focused business, then feel free to apply this to another quiet period in your business. A lot of people find this, for example, in February. I mentioned that earlier briefly, but there are a lot of businesses that find February one of their toughest months. But again, the more that you know this, the more that you can look back at the historical data, the more it feels like a rational, strategic business decision and less like a personal failing, which I know it can feel like. Okay, so point number 3, whenever you are in a time period that is difficult for sales, I strongly suggest that you think about your customer, which is advice that I give often because ultimately it all comes back down to your customer. But if you're struggling, for example, to connect with your customer right now, I would spend some time thinking about not just who your customer is, but who your customer is right now. And by that, I mean that a lot of the time we will have a ideal customer avatar or a customer persona, whatever you might want to call it. And that will be your semi-fictionalized representation of your ideal customer. Some people will make mood boards around them. It's actually a really great way to do it visually. Some people will have a written description of who their customer is. But often it can go along the lines of, my ideal customer is called Mary, and she lives in a market town, has 4 kids and a Land Rover, whatever it might be. So you might have an idea of what you might call a demographic of your ideal customer. Equally so, and equally valid, to be honest, is when you have what I would call a customer profile that is built around an interest, so an interest avatar. And that is more like, it's often really useful if you can't really see any similarities between the demographic of your customer, but you can see a really strong correlation between their beliefs. I think a zero waste store is a perfect example of this. A zero waste person, it may not be that they say, oh, her name's Mary, etc., but it may be that my customer really cares about waste reduction, they really care about environmental concerns, and then that helps them shape the thought process around the communication that they have with their customer. When you're talking about seasonality, what it does is it really gets you to think about not just your customer as a person, but a person right now. So, for example, if your ideal customer is a mother of small children, the summer, she's got a very different life experience than she does during the rest of the year because the kids are home. She's looking for different things. She's looking for products that are for entertainment. She's looking for maybe self-care products to help her relax at the end of the day. And similarly, if you have somebody who is very eco-conscious, then they maybe have different things that they're thinking about in the summer too. How do I reduce plastic on a picnic? How do I reduce plastic when I go to the beach? How can I live a minimal waste lifestyle when I'm going on holiday? All of those sorts of things. So whatever your customer type, I would spend some time thinking about not just who they are, but what they're doing right now. And actually, a really good exercise that a friend suggested to me and I find very helpful is to write a page in the first person about your ideal customer from the perspective of your ideal customer. So if your customer is a mum with small children, you start writing almost like a diary entry and really just let yourself think about what they're doing right now. Like, what's her day like? What is she thinking about? What is she concerned about? What is on her mind? What is on her shopping list? And helping you really get under the skin of what your customer is thinking about right now, because it does change. And one of the reasons that sales patterns change is that people's lives change in the summer. So it makes sense that whatever you know about your customer, or whatever you think about your customer, it may be a different experience in the summer than it is now. So point number 4. Point number 4 is to think about purchase triggers in your quieter time or in the summertime, whatever it may be. And the purchase triggers, we sort of touched on it before when we're talking about the customer, but your purchase triggers are really what would persuade someone to buy, or what is somebody shopping for right now. And when I think about purchase triggers, I always think about the middle aisle in Aldi. If anyone's been to Aldi, you know what I'm talking about. There's a middle aisle and it has kind of random assortment of stuff, but it's always really super relevant to the season. Big businesses, supermarkets, they are the absolute masters of this. They will really shift around the space in their shops depending on the season, and they will reflect the products that they have based on what the purchase triggers are for customers right now. So in the summer, you walk into Sainsbury's. We have a massive Sainsbury's near where I live, and when you walk in, the first thing is always their seasonal products. So when you walk in now, you see barbecues and outside toys and sprinkler heads and you name it. It's all about outside summer, and it's all very, very much tailored to their customers' purchase triggers. And in the winter, it is throws and candles. So big businesses, they spend their whole time doing this, really thinking about almost on a week by week basis, what is the customer looking for right now? And I think for small businesses, it's one of those things that, obviously not to generalize, a lot of small businesses do tailor their assortment seasonally. But I'd say, especially if you've really struggled in the summertime, just really thinking about, does your product assortment in the summertime match what it is that your customer actually wants to buy from you right now? Of course, small businesses are not in the game of being able to pull in hundreds and hundreds of different products at different times. That's not what I'm saying. But all I'm asking you to do is to think about your customer after you've written your first person piece of work. Go back and look at that and look at some of the purchase triggers that may be part of your customer's life right now. So for example, just to kind of broaden that out, in August or in the summertime, some of the things that your customers might be looking for might be entertainment. So we've touched on the school holidays. So clearly everybody's got kids of all ages that they need to keep entertained. So any products that you have around games, puzzles, things like that, things that will keep people busy, craft kits, all of those things should be no-brainers for talking about those for the summer months. Books, again, people have maybe a little bit more time to read if they're on holiday reads, all of those kind of things. Could that be something that you talk about? Beauty, so everything to do with summer skin, everything to do with helping you cool down as well. So staying cool is a really big prompt, if you like, for purchasing in the summer. Fans, cooling body products, all of those things could be really important triggers in August. Relaxation as well. So either relaxing because it's summertime and you're footloose and fancy free and a bit more time to relax than you might do otherwise, or because you're a busy parent and you need that relaxation at the end of the day. Also things like planners. You've got your mid-year planners, often launch around here, or your academic planners. So if you're somebody who sells stationery, that's often a key purchase driver at this time of year. People for festivals, travel items, health and fitness often has a bit of an upturn in the summer as well. And of course, this whole idea of back to school, back to college, back to work even. People might even be buying a new mug for the office, that kind of thing. September has a real fresh start feel to it in the same way that January does. In fitness and wellness industries, September and January are often their busiest months. So you're kind of getting ready for that new year, new you type feeling in September. And of course, if you're listening to this podcast and you feel like, well, actually, I'm a bit late for some of these summer triggers, then that's fine. It's still the same process when you think about the autumn, about September, about October. Do the same thing. If you need more time, you can't just suddenly implement new messaging in your business, then do the same exercise for September, October. Write out your customer in the first person. Think about what will be happening to them then, and then thinking about your seasonal purchase triggers for those months too. I think this is a process that, to be honest, big retailers do all year round. Every single month they're thinking about these purchase triggers, and it's definitely worthwhile in your business too. So point number 5 is, as well as these seasonal purchase triggers, I would think about what I kind of call the general purchase triggers. You might also call these the product trends or the retail trends for the year. But I think it's also worthwhile just remembering that a lot of the time customers are going to be buying as gifts, because in a time where people have less discretionary spending, then buying gifts is an area that continues to be prioritized over the idea of these sort of self-indulgence purchases, if you like, or self-gifting. So when you're also thinking about your purchase triggers, don't forget that a lot of people will be buying from you as a gift. That's a really important thing to remember. And also to think about other general purchase triggers or things that the customer's going to be thinking about, as well as gifting. Conscious consumerism is more important than ever. So really making sure that you're communicating with your customer about the way that a product is doing good or has been very thoughtfully created or curated, the way that it has been made, the supply chain, all of the different aspects of it are really important to a lot of customers. So make sure you're communicating that. The final point then, really with that, is about value for money. I've touched on this before, but I think it's just getting more and more important, especially as we're hearing more rumours about further increases in energy bills and coming up in the autumn. So people are very much thinking about how they're spending their money. So make sure that your focus is on value for money, which does not mean cheap, which means just that you're providing them excellent value for what you're offering. And then also things like cost per wear, cost per use. If it's more durable because it's higher quality, making sure that you're talking about that and weaving all of that into not just your product descriptions, your marketing, everything that you're doing when you're talking to the consumer, making sure that you're not only being aware of the seasonal purchase triggers, but the kind of general purchase triggers as well. And then point number 6, which kind of goes back to the first point about, or the second point rather, about deciding what you want the summer to be, is that rest is a really, really important part of running a business. It's been a bruising start to the year for a lot of people. I know I've spoken to so many small businesses. Many have had a good year. Lots of them equally have had a year where it's been tough. and where it really feels like it's been an uphill slog and every sale has been a harder fight. Rest is a very, very valid thing to do. If you can take a break, it will bring you back refreshed and ready for your peak selling season. The fourth quarter, October, November, December, is always the peak, unless you have a very, very seasonal summer-based business, in which case you're in your peak right now. But don't underestimate the need for rest in your business, the need to take a break, the need to sort of regroup your mindset and get yourself ready for the autumn. That is an extremely valid choice for your business in the month of August, and don't necessarily feel like it'll put you on the back foot if you take a bit of a break, because actually you coming back with a refreshed mindset, ready to go, ready to keep talking to customers about your products and putting it out there will be so, so important for the success of your business in the second half of the year, or the final third of the year, I should say, really. It's not even the second half at this point, is it? So there you have it. I'd love to know what you thought of today's episode. Do come over to Instagram at Resilient Retail Club, drop me a note and tell me what you thought. And of course, if you have a moment to rate and review the podcast in iTunes, or you can also rate it inside the Spotify app, that would be fantastic as well. And of course, if you follow or subscribe, you'll be the first to know about every new episode. If you've enjoyed this week's episode, then I invite you to check out resilientretailclub.com. The Resilient Retail Club is the membership for anyone wanting to start, grow, or scale a profitable product business. No more trawling Google trying to find the answers to your questions, or wading through general business advice that speaks mainly to service-based businesses. Whether you're still at the idea stage or you've been going for a while but want to get more focused and organised when it comes to your business, the Resilient Retail Club is the place for you. With a library of courses tailored to creative product businesses, several live sessions a month, and a supportive and active community, the Resilient Retail Club is the perfect membership to help you hit your goals faster. Check it out at resilientretailclub.com.